Thank you for your testimony. That completes our speakers. Board comments? Mr. Al-Hadaf, do you wish to?
Chairman Wilson, I do have a speaker slip that I'll submit with regard to this matter. This is exactly what I did not want to get into. This ordinance that's proposed by the County of Riverside tracks the language of many ordinances passed by cities and counties, including the County of San Diego, cities of San Jose, Santa Barbara, Palm Desert, City of Riverside. And I think everyone is entitled to reasonable rights of protest. The Supreme Court in other cases have held that there's also the right of privacy in your own residential dwelling. Having said that, I also understand that there is concern about the kinds of activities that take place when you have a sex offender that moves into a neighborhood, and what can be done to continue the kinds of activities that you all did, and Supervisor Buster called it the hurly-burly of democracy. There is the hurly-burly of democracy, but there's also the right to privacy. There's the right that Supervisor Tavoloni has on a Sunday morning to enjoy his home. There is the right of the Mormon bishop not to have someone protest at their home because they voted a certain way on a proposition. In this ever-complex world, we need to balance interests, and I think you've done an intelligent initiative. I've talked to County Council in terms of this ordinance. I would be pleased if it would be acceptable to spend a little bit of time with the County Council and to perhaps look at what could be done to improve the language of this particular ordinance. I think we've drafted it in a very constitutionally defensible way. When I say we, the County Council, she and I have talked to Pam Walls and I have talked about this morning. This very language has been upheld in the United States Supreme Court in the Frisbee case, but it's also, more importantly, been upheld, including the 300-foot distance in a recent Ninth Circuit case, the Klein case arising out of the San Diego County ordinance. Having said that, I understand dissent. We all understand dissent. But we also understand that everyone has the right to live peacefully in their own home. They have the right to practice their religion as they see fit. This is not about religion. This is not about groups wanting to protest sex offenders. This is about human decency. And having said that, I would be willing certainly to visit with those who have a question and try to resolve that in the next few days, if that's possible and if that's what you would wish. I thank you for your time. I made a rule last time that I wasn't going to be a jerkhead lawyer and I wasn't going to exceed my limit as a jerkhead lawyer. And I think those limits may have been exceeded this morning already by others, not lawyers, so I will shut up. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Al-Hadaf. Supervisor Stone.
Mr. Al-Hadaf?
Yes, sir.
Many of us have been very concerned about sexual offenders, and during the Dokich case, we made it our point to be out there to protest. The way that County Council has constructed this ordinance, which is really modeled after many others in Riverside County, what do you see that this ordinance would do in limiting our ability to go and protest a registered sex offender that was released within 48 hours of where the public had no notice of it, which was the case with Mr. Dokich?
Let me take just a moment and step back and to perhaps answer it in two ways, if I may. Number one, the Megan's Law, and I looked at the prescriptions. There are some very definite prescriptions of what can be done to notify people in the neighborhood. I know, for example, when I was city attorney at the City of Indio, we had public proclamations with regard to sex offenders. We had a list in City Hall that you could go to get the addresses and the like of that. But turning specifically to the ordinance and the protest that would go on, the interesting case, and I'm sorry, I'm going to exceed my jerkhead time limit here. Forgive me.
I'm going to ask you questions. You can take your time.
Okay. The Frisbee case is the United States Supreme Court case, dealt with the village of Brookfield, Wisconsin. Brookfield, Wisconsin was approximately 4,500 people. They passed an ordinance that said you cannot target any individual home in our city. What the United States Supreme Court case did there, though, was they said it's perfectly okay if you wish to go up and down the streets. Public streets have always been considered forums for dissent. that if you wish to march around the street, for example, and have placards or signs and do whatever you wish. So in the Dokich case, you could have marched up and down the street. Neighbors could have put signs in their lawns and those kinds of things to bring attention to the fact that this person had been put there against anybody's will. I think the question that came up was the distance factor. And let me explain. You see, the city of San Diego or the county of San Diego has no distance factor. It just says on or about. The Frisbee case said on or about. The Klein case, which talks about, and this is the county of San Diego, has a 300-foot distance factor. If it's the distance factor that is the question in most people's mind, then I think we should look at that just in terms of what the cases have upheld and take a distance factor measurement and perhaps change that. But certainly, under the United States Supreme Court case, you could have gone up and down the street in front of the Dokich place and done whatever you wish to have done.
But the congregation that we had with KFI across the street, under this ordinance, that density of people within 300 feet would have been considered illegal according to our ordinance.
It would have been considered targeting, picketing to a particular residence, but the sex offender would have had to have been the one to call and request the assistance. So if that's the question, Supervisor, certainly Ms. Walls and I could look at that with your staff.
Okay. One other question I have, because I'm going to talk about it in a second. There's there's many hateful groups, unfortunately, in the United States, one of which is called Anonymous.
Yes.
Anonymous has picketed the Church of Scientology in areas that I've documented in this journal that I have. Was any of the recent protests at the Hemet location sponsored or perpetuated by the group Anonymous? This
is something that many of us, certainly you and I, have never come across. And I have to take a moment to explain myself here. As you know, I have a handicapped son, so I have at times experienced prejudice because of Michael's behavior as an autistic person. My heritage is Jewish, so I understand prejudice because I lost family in Dachau and Buchenwald and all the other places. I didn't believe today that it existed, but it does. There's a group called Anonymous. For whatever reason, they have targeted the Church of Scientology. Again, it could be any church. It could be a mosque. It could be a synagogue. But they've also targeted the Epilepsy Society. They've targeted Jews, and they have done many hateful things. If you recall the Finnish incident that occurred just recently, that was the Anonymous. They have on their websites how to commit suicide. This gentleman was praised because he went in, shot 7 people, shot his teacher, and then killed himself. Those are the kinds of things that you see in cyberspace that we never grew up with. This was something foreign to us. So this is a group that's organized. When they do come to protest, and they have come to protest here at the campus, they wear masks and they wear robes. And they do these things. The gentleman that spoke here, unfortunately for him, the Sheriff's Department and the Superior Court did not see it the way he presented to you in his hearing last week. I also understand that he was again arrested in the county of Los Angeles recently. There are people here who have every right to dissent, to do protests, but they don't have the right to invade someone else's property or to do bad things. So that's what we're trying to balance here.